What is good, everyone? Dennis Schroder is touchdown in the Bay. He has practiced with the team ahead of his first game against the Memphis Grizzlies on Thursday. Let's discuss his debut in San Francisco.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is the good word, everyone? Hopefully it's good vibes with Dennis Schroder starting things up for the Golden State Warriors on Thursday. This is Locked On Warriors. We're free and available wherever you get your audio podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can also check out the show on YouTube. Stream live after the games, and we have great guests on the show. Our guest today, Michael Loganoff. You may recognize him from the Bay Area, a standout basketball player for St. Ignatius in the city. My name's Charlie Walter, covered the team for 95.7 The Game, and also for CBS News Bay Area, where I saw the Warriors win that title in Boston in 2021-2022. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel's good stuff, everyone. You can start the season with a big return. New customers can place a $5 bet. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. You got to win that first $5 bet, though. Makes it fun. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We also have a free daily newsletter. It's delivered right to your inbox. You can find it on LockedOnDaily.com. Subscribe, and you'll get all the Warriors news, notes, nuggets around the NBA, too, delivered right to you for free. And it has a link to this show. Michael, let's get into it. Today's all about Dennis Day in the Bay. Schroder usually wears 17. It's because he was the 17th pick and his late father's favorite number. Obviously, Chris Mullin, he cannot wear 17, so he's going to flip it around. Schroder will wear 71. Sounds like he's picked up things really well in practice, and his role will be to play all the non-Steph Curry minutes and start and finish the game with Steph Curry. I'll give you the floor here. I've spoken on what I think Schroder brings to the table, and it's a very good start. Because to bury all this, it's waiting in the weeds, ready to pounce. I said it the entire offseason because I was in the camp that the Warriors have just not had good enough players. They need to go out and get someone. This is the start. This is where you give yourself a pulse, you give yourself a chance to evaluate, and we'll see what the market turns into down the road. They have time now. They do this before Christmas. It's huge.
Yeah, Chuck, I completely agree with that. And it's something that we talked about on the show 3 weeks ago, right? When De'Anthony Melton first went down, and we talked about not necessarily the elite NBA player that De'Anthony Melton is, but the quality two-way player that he is and the role he played on the Warriors and what he meant to this team. And after that injury, I had said that it's a huge loss to the Warriors. That's why we're losing games. And, people eviscerated me in the comments. People told me I'm delusional. They don't know what I'm talking about. But, I keep receipts. And I think if we can, God forbid that we let facts get in the way of a good argument here, Chuck. But since that injury, prior to De'Anthony Melton getting hurt, while he missed games sporadically here and there, I'll acknowledge that. There's a little bit of nuance here in this analysis. But we were 10-2. All right, that's an 83% win percentage. I'll run the numbers quick. Since then, we are 4-9, a 31% win percentage. I'm not necessarily saying or implying that correlation implies causation, or I shouldn't jump to say that. But I think we can easily correlate the fact that ever since we lost our starting shooting guard in De'Anthony Melton, that the Warriors' quality of play and consistency of play and style of play has really taken a hit. And we've seen instances of when the team, going back to what, I've harped on this a lot. I feel like a broken record to a degree, but about that identity. And there were instances where we were able to demonstrate that, right? Like when we beat Minnesota and we saw the Warriors take them down. I mean, that's a tough team. It's one of the better teams in the West, regardless of whether or not they're 14-11. They're still figuring things out. But there are times when we were able to get back to a brand of basketball that was winning the Warriors games at those first 12 games of the year. But losing Melton really created a huge hole in the lineup. And like we talked about previously of the fundamental construction of the roster, then you're naturally going to start Podziemski. But now the indication of bringing in Schroder is exactly what we talked about previously, the fact that they're doing that to fill that gap that was created when Melton was injured. And so what Schroder brings is the ability to create his own shot, to get to the hoop. We've talked about this too, you and I, and as well with Carrie on the airwaves. It's a matter of looking at archetypal players and not necessarily an individual, precise, look of something, like a Zach LaVine specifically or Jimmy Butler specifically, but a type of player that can create their own shot, that can get to the hoop, that can knock down jumpers, that can do that independently. And that's something that I think Schroder brings to the team. We've seen our fourth quarter scoring has been a challenge as of late for the Warriors. And so I think bringing him in gives us that ability. Like you talked about just now, the pesky defender, I think a way to say that as well is he's just competitive. He competes. Dennis doesn't care if he's rotating on a switch and there's a 7-footer there. He's going to play physical and he's going to do what he can to disrupt the play. And so I think on both ends, you're getting a veteran presence. You're getting a guy who wants to get out there and compete, that wants to play on both ends of the floor. And that provides the Warriors something that the team lost with the injury to Melton, is that player who can create off the bounce, can shoot the three, can create for others. We look at the numbers. It's all there. Don't let facts get in the way of a good argument. I think it's a perfect signing, or a perfect trade, I should say, and a great way to replace what we lost when Melton went down.
You add another player to the mix, and this was a team that was running 12 deep at points. And I haven't looked at all the rotations over the last couple of weeks, but it naturally has been reduced. Obviously, Melton, Moses Moody's missed a couple of games. We haven't seen as much Kyle Anderson as I would have liked, man. Let's weave that in for 2 seconds before we get back into this entire argument, because Kyle Anderson, I think he's really good, and I think he should be seeing more 20-plus minute nights than he has been. Why do you think he hasn't?
I think it's, again, when you think about the way the roster is constructed right now, without having another guy out there that can really create his own shot or command.
Do you think this helps Anderson maybe?
I think it helps Anderson. I think we're going to see more of Kyle now, because that enables you to, when you take Steph off the floor, but then you have Schroder out there who can create his own shot, it enables you to play with someone like a Kyle Anderson. It wouldn't surprise me if we even see some Kyle and Draymond minutes at the same time, mixed in with Steph, Schroder, then throw in a Wiggins or a Kuminga there, because you have two shooters. You can have a little bit of spacing. And Draymond this year too, I mean, again, he's shooting the three ball well. I mean, he in that Mavs game, he made 5 out of 9, I think it was, right? And so he's shooting the ball. He's still not going to command, the attention of a defense in the way that these other players do, but he can still he's proven his ability to knock it down at a high clip, dating back to last season when he managed to stay on the floor. And so, I think we're going to see some more Kyle. I think just having another player that can really create off the bounce creates more opportunity for a player like Kyle to contribute in a meaningful way.
So who do we see less of? Because the rotation was obviously thick in general. Lindy Waters is now back into the mix. You go 4 or 5 games without seeing Lindy, and it's like, oh, there he goes. He can still play basketball. He's good. Pat Spencer gets his minutes here and there. I know we haven't seen it as much lately. You would have to assume that at some point, although it sounds like Moses Moody's doubtful for Thursday's game against Memphis, he is going to be back on this team, or at least back in the lineup in full uniform playing. I thought naturally it kind of pushes Brandon Bajemski, who's struggled a little bit, probably hasn't earned the minutes he's been playing this season. I mean, I don't think he's been as bad as some people. Get rid of him, cut his ass. He's terrible. I don't think he's been that bad. I don't think he's been someone, though, that deserves 31 minutes a game, which he has seen multiple times during this losing streak. I would think that, Schroder kind of replaces a lot of those minutes. However, it sounds like Steve Kerr is going to push Brandon Bajemski into the shooting guard position. It wasn't fair to put him, as a facilitator, and he plays better off ball, to which a lot of people on Warriors Reddit says he plays better off court. So, I mean, touche to that one there. But, how does this mix things up? Because once again, we got the maestro, Steve Kerr, pulling the strings. Not an easy job to do. You now have a rotation, to me, that I think can be shortened with Schroder. I mean, that's what this allows you to do. It allows you to give Schroder 30 minutes and quit going with 18, 20, 22 minutes a night. 5 different players doing that.
Definitely. I mean, I think we're going to see Schroder chew up a lot of minutes. I think, I mean, Pat Spencer, he's a fun story. What an awesome, commitment to the game and an ability to make your way to the NBA after playing lacrosse in college. But I mean, ultimately, Pat Spencer's a two-way player for a reason, right? And so I think we're going to see a lot less of Pat Spencer in the future. Ideally, on the discussion of a Lindy or a Moses Moody coming off the bench, ideally, if I could have it my way, I would like to see more of Moody, simply from the standpoint of develop the young talent. You just signed him to a contract.
Paid him good money.
Yeah, might as well put him out there, right? Let him. I'd rather see Moses take up the minutes than Lindy. But then with regards to Podziemski, I mean, Schroeder's definitely going to chew into his minutes. I think that's a very good thing. And I think and the reason why I say that isn't just because Pods has been underperforming. I think the expectations, it alleviates pressure. Exactly. And it allows him to play more within his role and more, kind of allowing him to do what I think he's better at. And, we talked about this earlier this season, but kind of being the glue guy, because if anyone denies, okay, who's the first guy to hit the deck? It's Pods on any play. If anyone denies who's the guy that dives into the sands and, makes those crazy plays where he saves the ball and gives us an extra possession, he does those little things, right? And, those things are tough to quantify. But I'm not going to sit here and defend him when I say I think he's shooting, 25% from three? I mean, come on, that's abhorrent. You can't be getting burned as much as he has in the NBA, shooting 25% from three at the guard position. So I think we're going to see Schroeder take up some of those minutes, but also, too, what I'm excited to see with Dennis is I think he's going to take up, honestly, some of Steph's minutes from the standpoint of that load management, right? I mean, Steph's been playing some more minutes, and we've been trying to, ride Steph as much as we can, which, he's our superstar. He's our guy. But ultimately, he turns 37 in a couple months. And, you got to start finding ways to keep him engaged and allowing him to continue to impact the game in the unique way that he can with his gravity, with his ability to make shots and create for others. But having Dennis allows you to have someone that can, you can kind of have out there and create some offense for himself and others, and giving Steph extended periods to catch his breath, and hopefully we don't have to play him deep into the mid-30s frequently, right? Occasionally you're going to have to, but hopefully you don't have to do that a lot.
Coming up, let's continue the conversation. Dennis Schroder, just 6'1", another small guard added to the mix. How is Steve Kerr going to make all these rotations work without being too small? We'll explain. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can bet $5. You'll get 150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place your live bets all in one place. So if you get that hunch in the middle of the game and you need to make a bet quickly, you can check the latest stats. You could view the live play-by-play. You could do it all on the same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with those 150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. You can only get that on FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Now's a good time to tell you that the NBA Cup Championship has come and it has gone. The Bucks took down the Thunder 97-81 in the game. So if you had the Milwaukee Bucks to win the NBA Cup Championship, and if you had them to win the game in general, they were getting 5.5. Very good for you. Fact of the matter is Dennis Schroeder's not a big guy. Plays bigger than he is because of that 6'7.5" wingspan, but he's only 6'1". You add in another small player to this roster, and it makes you wonder how Steve Kerr is going to balance this entire thing. What's the starting lineup going to be? If he's going to be in there like Steve Kerr wants him to be for starting and finishing lineups, you have Steph Curry, you have Dennis Schroder. I would think that Draymond Green maybe slides back in there, but at this point, maybe it's a commitment for Steve Kerr to have him coming off the bench. But Wiggins, Kuminga, Looney, Wiggins, Kuminga, Trace Jackson Davis, Wiggins, Kuminga, Draymond. You just play your best 5 players. I don't know exactly how he's going to get this thing together in terms of, because at this point in the season, most NBA teams, when healthy, have their 5, right? There's not a lot of experimenting on December 17th at this stage of the NBA season. But the Warriors, it seems like they have not had a consistent, their starting 5 to begin the year was that huge lineup that featured Wiggins
that
at
lasted
2,
4 games.
Yeah. Kuminga at the 3. And it only, it probably would have lasted longer. But there were some injuries that shaked it up, right? And that's what kind of forced the Warriors to go another route. I'm just wondering how Steve Kerr is going to play this thing out. If you were a betting man, how do you think he's going to have these ending rotations? Because someone is getting shafted unless you're playing small. If you want to add size into the lineup, whether it's Kuminga, whether it's Draymond, whether it's Wiggins, someone is on the bench because of this move here. How do you manage it?
Yeah, I think starting at the 1 is going to be Steph. Then you're going to see Dennis. Then you're going to see Wiggins. I think the Warriors, what we've seen is a commitment right now to give Kuminga the opportunity to start at the 4. We can get into some of the gamesmanship there and why I think we're doing that. And then at the 5, like you said, it's going to be Trace or Kevon. I don't think they're in any position right now where they want to be starting Draymond at the 5. He'll play the 5 in spurts, probably closing close games at the 5. But I don't think they want him banging in the post against, 7-footers consistently. He can do it. He's proven his ability to. We all know he can.
So he's closing at the 5 every game, and
that's what I would. Yeah, or Kevon, right? You're going to see some sort of a mix of that. But I mean, a closing lineup,
close games if that's the case.
I think it's probably so. If you're going to go a little bit bigger, I think it's probably going to be the lineup's going to be Steph and Dennis because you need 2 reliable ball handlers, as we've seen the Warriors have struggled with down the stretch. Someone like Buddy, we've seen him how many times dribble off, or just make a terrible pass, and that's not Buddy's role. You don't want him doing that, right? So we're going to see Steph and Dennis, probably going to see Wiggins, probably going to see Draymond, and then Kevon, I would imagine. Or if they want to go small and quick, you're going to see Kevon head to the bench and then probably slot in Kuminga there at the 4 and move Draymond down to the 5. That is probably the best lineup when you think of overall talent. But again, just the size component, having Wiggins and Kuminga is nice because they're both, tall athletes that can run on the perimeter. But ultimately, from a just physicality standpoint, there's something to be left desired there. And we saw a little bit of that even in the Mavs game with just Daniel Gafford just snagging rebounds. I saw instances because Trace has really not been playing well lately. I was high on him at the start of the year. He's been struggling. You saw the value of having a player like him a couple times in the Mavs game where he's able to, catch an alley-oop or catch a dump down pass and dunk on Derek Lively. I mean, if Draymond gets that pass, that's going to get swatted into the 3rd row, right? So Trace brings a little bit of that different verticality to the game. But, I mean, I think that's going to realistically be your starting and closing lineups, the Steph, Schroder, and then any combination of Wiggins, Kuminga, Draymond, and Looney, just kind of depending on matchups.
Interesting you bring that up because a player that has a little bit of Trace Jackson Davis's game is a John Collins. Could he be on the block? A different type of player, but a big is Vucevic of the Chicago Bulls. You also have someone like, who else is in the mix that could be up for sale in terms of being traded?
Cam Johnson.
Rob Williams. I don't know if he's someone that could be on the block, but when you're looking at some of the bigs that are available, it probably won't take as much to get them. It sounds like the Warriors are more waiting to see if a star becomes available. And if a star becomes available, it's going to involve Andrew Wiggins. And clearly, if they do entertain Jimmy Butler, it's because they think that Jimmy Butler is not just a minor addition as compared to, or a minor upgrade as compared to Andrew Wiggins. It would be because they think he's a big-time addition, because it would also involve draft picks and could also involve Jonathan Kuminga. So let's start there, because you mentioned that if they decide to go big, Kuminga is the one that could be getting the seat on the bench, despite all the conversations pointing to Kuminga being someone that's handed the keys in this situation. And whether he's being handed the keys because they think he is the cornerstone player of the future, whether he's being handed the keys because they want to get his stock up enough to the point where he's the most valuable asset he could possibly be come deadline time, we don't really know. We're kind of waiting and seeing. In a situation, though, where the Warriors do go out and get someone, what move would you like them to see? Because I think we're both in the camp that Schroeder's a nice start. It's not enough to completely put you over the top, but there's someone that could be $20 million out there that is. Jimmy Butler's $50 million. Jimmy Butler is going to cost you a haul. Are you in the camp of, hey, Schroeder, Draymond, Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, and if you can keep Jonathan Kuminga, that is a 5 right there. We ride with whoever the assets are on our team, Buddy Hield, Kyle Anderson. Let's say you lose Looney and Peyton in this situation, or Moody or Pajemski, whatever. It gets a little dicey at that point in terms of role players. But how would you like to do this thing? Because to me, going after 35-year-olds that are looking for big-time max money extensions, that is usually what just destroys you for a decade. I look at the Brooklyn Nets when they're like, let's bring in Paul Pierce and Rondo.
Look at the Sixers this year. Look at the Sixers this year.
Whoever it may be. And it can work out. It could be as
The
simple as
Lakers
Jimmy
towards the
Butler.
end with Kobe, right? The Lakers towards the end with Kobe when they re-signed him, they gave him the what's the lifetime achievement award contract, which justifiably so.
They
I
gave
think
him
you give to
Steve
Kobe.
Nash. Yeah, and
Yeah.
they brought in Dwight Howard and some of these guys that just did not work. But there is a way, like surface level looking at this thing. You bring in Jimmy Butler, he's that third star, second star you're looking for, whatever you want to call it, and you keep just enough of the right role players to where you could be a better team than you are today. And you're just getting rid of maybe 1-2 first round draft picks. You've already got rid of second round draft picks. Like, I'm giving you the GM tag. You're Mike Dunleavy's right-hand man. You have the next month to, I guess, month and a half to scour the market and see what's going to happen. How are you looking at this thing in terms of what contracts you're willing to bring in, which ones you aren't?
Yeah, well, I think to start that analysis, we got to take a step back and not even look at what's going to be on the market. It's a matter of what do we have, right? And
What
so
do you need?
Kuminga, what do we have? What do we need? And that's why Kuminga is starting now. It's not only, I think it's a little pessimistic to think that they're only doing this to inflate his stock and inflate his numbers and give him the burn. I think there is a desire to kind of see how he can perform and if he can step up and really produce at a consistent level. Because again, we've seen it in spurts this year. So it can kind of go both ways, right? It's kind of a double-edged sword where, okay, can he produce and does his trade value go up? But equally, are we willing to part with that trade value? And, do the Warriors think that Kuminga is worth that 30 to 35 million that he's asking for? And this is his opportunity to prove it, because if you don't think that he is worth that, then the innate decision becomes obvious of you have to ship him, right? Because if you're not going to give him the money that he wants, then you have to get some value for the asset. Otherwise,
especially after you lose out on assets a season ago with Chris Paul, Klay Thompson. I mean, that should be the mirror hitting you right in the face that says, all right, we cannot do what we did a season ago.
Exactly. And so I think that's what we're seeing a little bit here with Kuminga starting. I think when it comes to what a roster construction would look like, again, I mean, I think we talked about this too, but yeah, I think we mentioned it from the context of, what would you say if our starting lineup, if, our best 4 players were, Steph, Draymond, Wiggins, and Vucevic or something along those lines. And, we both kind of laughed and said, oh yeah, that best 4 is beating the Celtics in the East, right? It's like, come on, let alone getting out of the West. And so it's a matter of, I think it's really tough to think about trading Wiggins right now for Jimmy, just because of the fact that Wiggins is playing, really good basketball. I think he's kind of back to that really consistent two-way player.
Can I ask you this?
Yeah.
Because Kolsky kind of scoffed at me when I said, is Jimmy that much of an upgrade over Andrew Wiggins? Do you think he's night and day better than Andrew Wiggins?
I don't think he's night and day. I think it's the reliability down the stretch that is what separates Wiggins and Jimmy Butler. I think it's just kind of the competitive nature that separates them and the reliability and clutch moments. And, we talked about this a little bit before too, but the Andrew Wiggins experience comparing, was the game against the Celtics when he hits that jump shot over Tatum. I brought this up a bunch of times, but he hits it there. We get the lead, and it pushes the lead to 4 and extends that. But then also we see him towards the end of the Nuggets game where he goes to make a dribble move and then falls down and turns the ball over, right? And so I think that's a little bit of why we also brought in Schroder to see, okay, well, if he's in there, does that kind of mix things up a little bit more on offense? And by mix things up, I mean make things more dynamic, because you have both Schroder and Steph who can really beat their man off the bounce. And then if you're passing it to Wiggins where he can attack in a closeout, that really makes Wiggins more dynamic in that situation. But when I think about the night and day aspect, I would say not necessarily, especially this season. I think Jimmy's having a drop-off to a degree from his previous levels and his previous levels of production. But I think from a standpoint of, mentality and the ability to score down the stretch in clutch moments and really be able to get to your spot in clutch moments as a player, I think Jimmy brings more of that. I don't think he's head and shoulders overall better than Wiggins now, but I think he's stronger in those areas.
Coming up, This is just the first move. At least that's the hopes. Although the plan is to wait and evaluate the market, as it seems like Mike Dunleavy Jr. is fine with taking his good old sweet time, seeing what the Warriors have in Schroder and what they need from there. Which players could become available and which guys could help this team. We'll discuss coming up. So what do we do? That's what I'm wondering here, because Dunleavy has said that during this window over the next 3 years of Steph Curry, they want to go all out, and each year is an opportunity to compete for an NBA championship. They bring in Schroder. It sounds like the plan is to evaluate what Schroder is like on this team, how he meshes with everyone. It's not technically his style, the motion offense that the Warriors run, but they figure he's smart. And quite frankly, they're switching it up a little. They're going more pick and roll. So we'll see how that helps his game. They also said that they own the bird rights. I was wondering that when they got him. So they can technically bring him back. I know he's 31 years old, but you can sign him to a little deal. He's playing great basketball right now, 2 or 3 years. Really line up Draymond Green, Andrew Wiggins, Steph Curry, Dennis Schroder. All of a sudden you have a core. You bring in one more big fish. It's like, all right, we're cooking here. But the question then becomes, if you go out and you get like a Ingram or a Butler or someone that makes north of, $35-40 million, what that says to me is that you believe you have the chance right now to win an NBA championship. Do any of these players get the Warriors over the top is the biggest question. It's intriguing. Like seeing Dennis Schroder, quite frankly, I like Brandon Ingram. I don't know if I necessarily like him on this team, but as a scorer, as someone that adds some size, like I like Ingram's game. I think he's a lot of fun to watch. Now I think a lot of Warriors fans based off just his demeanor alone, they'd be like, no, we don't need Brandon Ingram. But like that's where I'm struggling right now, because clearly getting rid of second-round draft picks for Schroder, it can be a buffer move, right? You have options in the future with Schroder. At the very least, your gamble was you got rid of Reese Beekman, a hurt De'Anthony Melton, and some second-rounders. The goal is to do more here, but I don't think Dunleavy is just going to pull the trigger for a name. Like, he's a smart guy. I don't think he's going to go Brooklyn Nets and go after a 36-year-old Kevin Garnett and that move right there. So what do they do here? What do they do? There's no easy answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really going to be these next, 7 weeks, seeing what we have. And that's, I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but that's what they have to do. They have to figure out the construction of the roster and what this looks like, right? Because maybe we do see Kuminga make a jump that is, he's finding ways that he can consistently affect the game in a lot of those little ways that we've talked about over the course of the season, right? And doing those things consistently, while also I think he's really proven an ability and a higher degree of comfort to kind of get to his spots in the mid post and hit that turnaround jump shot, or attack in space. And what I mean by when I say attack in space, I mean, when you're catching the ball at a closeout, you're able to beat the man off one dribble and then kind of assess, am I going to the hoop or am I pulling up and knocking on this jump shot? And his decision making has really improved. So again, flowers to Kuminga. But I think what this also provides the front office the window to make the analysis that or the window of time it gives them to conduct some analysis here is not just, okay, is Kuminga gonna, has he made a jump this season to be able to, help us contend for an NBA championship? Maybe the question that they're asking is projecting out. Okay, well, we have seen him really improve over these last 2 months when we've given him the chance to start and we've given him consistent burn. We've ran him with the starting unit. Do we think that next year Kuminga will have a higher impact on our team than Brandon Ingram will, than a Jimmy Butler will, and then those kind of pieces that we'd be willing to make a trade for? Will Kuminga be actually more, will he provide more as an asset to the team next season based on what we've seen? And so it's a little bit of projecting out and understanding what the value of him would be and if you're willing to pay. Because, I mean, I don't think that necessarily, making a deal for Jimmy Butler that, removes Wiggins, removes kind of this consistent core is a needle mover. I've been saying I want the Warriors to go all in, but it has to be for a move that actually makes sense, because equally while the team has had some success this season. I think we have to see, if the team can really right the ship and get back on track with this move and see how that affects Kuminga, and then make an assessment in a month. And then you say, okay, where are we at? Are we kind of back in that 70 to 80% win percentage? Or are we just kind of going 500 now and we're going to be hovering at 7 to 8? Then it's a matter of, okay, maybe you do kind of got to make a bigger move, and the mix that we have isn't working. And one last thing that I'll say too, Chuck, is the interesting thing with acquiring Schroder for Melton and his contract is the fact that now that asset that you're moving, while they're comparable from a financial perspective, now you're actually providing an asset that isn't just a money matcher and that isn't just an expiring contract of what Melton was, but you're actually providing, a near 20-point a game scorer who's averaging close to 7 assists, and Dennis Schroder, who can provide value to another team. So, that could be part of this idea as well.
If this Warriors installment, and I'm talking like the next 3 years, is able to win another NBA championship, you can point to this move as probably being the straw that stirred the drink, the move that kind of unlocked the potential, because you really got rid of nothing. You got rid of nothing valuable in this moment and brought in someone that can fix a lot of your problems. And now the question is, are they willing to get rid of a lot of the pieces they already have and a lot of the future to go after that needle mover? I want to bring up one more thing. I'm not going to put him on the thumbnail, even though it's a good way to pander for clicks. LeBron James. I don't really bring up his name on this show because I don't think there's a chance in hell, but I haven't asked you. I mean, is it a big goose egg? You put it at 1%? Like that's how we're going to finish the show.
Not a snowball's chance in hell.
We don't even need to talk about it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, it's simple, Chuck. Because, look, it's a fun thing to think about, right? Wouldn't that be awesome to watch Steph and LeBron team up?
Would it, though? Would it be awesome? I don't know. There's I'm sure a lot of –
Did you watch the Olympics?
It was pretty awesome. It was pretty awesome.
It was pretty fun, right? Pretty fun.
I guess at a certain point you can get over the rivalries and the has-beens to win another championship.
What would be fun with that is just the fact that, you got the two old heads in the league besides, Kevin Durant teaming up and saying, all right, let's just go take all the young guys on. And I think it's just kind of fun. But, with LeBron,
if he didn't win, would be a disaster.
Oh, it'd be an absolute disaster. And with LeBron, you're literally mortgaging the farm. There's not much left over with his contract, and so that's.
I don't think Dunleavy Lacob are that kind of guy. I don't think those kind of guys that would make that splashy PR move. Honestly, is what I would look at it. So,
we've seen a little bit of LeBron. I think a little bit of father time catching up to him this season too, which is understandable. I think this is season 22. So
got 8 years on me, and my body's starting to fall apart. So, I have a Snickers and I can't walk for a week. So I can't even imagine what he has to go through to keep his body in check. But that's Michael Loganoff. You can check him from time to time on KNBR. Goes on with Kerry Crowley. They talk some hoops. I'm Charlie Walter. This is Locked On Warriors. Peace, everyone. We're free and available wherever you get your audio podcasts, and check us out on YouTube. Leave us a like on the way out.